Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Formula, and we're live ahead of the sprint race for the Canadian Grand Prix. Terry, it's so good to have you back, my man.
I don't know how much I'm going to be back for. I'm having camera problems, microphone problems. I don't know what's going on. Next hour could be fun.
It's going to be a wild and crazy hour no matter how you slice it. So I'm excited to duke it out with you for the next 59 plus minutes and see if we can set our lineups for Canada. We've got rain in the forecast. We've got a minefield of B-tier drivers. And let's start the hour off with the drivers that are starting the sprint race from the pit lane. It was just announced a little while ago that Ollie Behrman, Pierre Gasly, and Alex Albon all starting the sprint race at the top of the hour from the pit lane. And this is meaningful to me because a lot of us were thinking about Albon this week because he has that back of the grid overtake ability. Now it's knocked down a peg because he doesn't have any of those race start overtakes, but I still really like Alex this week because that Williams appears to be on the upswing. Terry, are you seeing good signs from Williams yet, or am I jumping on Alex too early?
I think it's a track that suits them. I think they definitely made some improvements. Let's be honest about it. Double points last time out, and then we saw Carlos obviously get a good result yesterday as well. So it's clearly the car has made a step in the right direction. Whether or not it's enough, I don't know. You'd expect Williams and Alex from the back to actually be able to get lights of Cadillac, Aston Martin, get ahead of those guys, to be honest about it. So there's a few overtakes in that alone. Ollie Behrman doesn't surprise me. We know that yesterday Haas actually had Ollie Behrman. He had updates onto his car. I did a video on it earlier. They don't actually know what went wrong with it, but he qualified the same as Esteban, who didn't have the updates on his car. So when you got two cars, one with updates, one without, and they're qualifying so close to each other, it's no surprise they rolled something back on Ollie's car, possibly because it's either not working, they didn't get enough data. We know that Esteban obviously crashed out without going into your free practice rounder. But yeah, so for me, those ones starting from the pit lane are no real surprise, to be honest. And I think those drivers are not going to be in the points anyway, so they're using it more of an extra free practice session is probably the best way to do it.
It's a breaking news from the chat as you were saying that, Terry. Bottas also starting from the pit lane. And that makes for some interesting news for us because that sounds like maybe one more overtake for Albon. He's going to have another pit lane buddy that he's clearly faster than. One fewer overtake for Liam Lawson, who is still starting on the grid, as far as we know right now, at the back of the grid. One less Cadillac for him to overtake at the beginning because they'll probably feed out behind some of those drivers. So it seems like it's going to be an evolving story as the hour unfolds.
Is anyone actually on the grid?
That's a great question.
Because someone in chat tell us who's actually going to be on the grid.
I remember last time when we were doing this show in Miami, we had Hulkenberg on fire in the reconnaissance lap. So we're going to need that breaking news from you, chat. So please keep us posted. All right, let's pull up the sprint qualifying classifications, at least as they stood yesterday. 1-2 finish for Mercedes at the top of the pile here. Those upgrades were huge. And I think it's further proof that we need as much Mercedes coverage on our teams as possible. If you can afford George, put in George. I think a lot of us are going to keep Kimi in our lineups as the 2X boosted driver. But for me, the big change is I need that Mercedes constructor. No matter how it fits on my team, they got to be in there. And then looks like basically the buddy system, the rest of the way down the top 8, 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls. The news here is that so many of us had Ferrari as a constructor and now McLaren have leapfrogged them. That's going to be the big question throughout the hour, where McLaren are the team in form this week. They'll probably score a few more points than Ferrari, but I think we're going to really want Charles Leclerc's team at his home race in Monaco next time out, especially with the really good race starts from Ferrari. They should be able to get a lot of overtakes and then sustain those positions, unlike what they have in the last few races.
Yeah, Ferrari's a really interesting one. I mean, they're losing 0.4, I think I saw this morning, actually on the straights, which is clearly where all their problems are. If you look at their cornering and everything else, they're actually top of the pack on those. So they've got a great smaller turbo, which, like you say, allows them to have those starts, allows them to be good in the corners. But then they just can't keep the power down on the straights, and it's just absolutely killing them, to be honest.
And then as we go down a little bit further, we've got Audi's really in no man's land. The Hulkenberg had the DNS and the DNF in Miami, so he's a pretty clear sell for this week. But a lot of us are thinking about Gabby. He's got the price point where we've got to get him in, but Audi, it's going to be a coin flip every week on who's going to get that DNF. We're on race 5. Only one race has seen both Audis cross the finish line, and now we're going to have a sprint and a Grand Prix this weekend. So 2 chances for them to have a DNF for. So that's going to be a little troubling. Haas, Terry mentioned a moment ago, they brought upgrades on one car, didn't appear to see much difference on either of them. And then as we go a bit lower, we see the usual suspects with Aston Martin and Cadillac. A rare dud for Pierre Gasly. He's usually up around the top 10. So in part why he's starting from the pit lane for the sprint. And then not classified in the sprint qualifying were both Alex Albon and Liam Lawson, who had car issues stemming from free practice 1. Albon hit a critter in FP1. And so we pour one out for that poor little guy. Ruth Buscombe was saying in the last 20 years that something like 18% of Canadian Grand Prix have been impacted by a critter on the track.
Yeah, I saw that. And seagulls, when you go back to Seb, wasn't it? The 1 year as well. And when he tried to avoid the 2 seagulls. It's a crazy statistic. More than rain was now, I think I saw in some tracks.
And that little guy messed up Albon's car. I mean, they couldn't get it ready for sprint qualifying. He's going to have a pit lane start for the sprint. So some big damage there. All right. We've got a lot of our friends in the chat. Wow. Hey, Race Maven. Oh, Race Maven's calling out her fellow members here, Rick and Rebecca. I'm sure they're just they'll be heading over here in just a little bit. But
absolutely.
If you're a member, make sure you get your lineups in through our special link. If you're not already a member, we will prioritize your lineup review if you become a member of the channel. So make sure you do that.
And if not, why not? I mean, that's got to be the big question, hasn't it? You know, the biggest question from today's stream. If you're not a member, why not?
You've got some explaining to do to Terry.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And in all seriousness, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure to hit the like button. That just tells YouTube that you're loving this show and that you want more of us in your face each and every race week. So please be sure to do that.
Or fantasy content, you know. Let's not gloss around.
You don't want to see my cooking show?
I got a bike going. We could do a bit of a fitness show as well. You know, maybe a bit of fitness, bit of cooking. You know, maybe if we get some subscribers, we could do a show on the bike or something. Maybe that's the next challenge we got.
Oh my goodness. You know, the FanAmp channel is close to 20,000 subscribers. And if that will get a bike in stream from Terry, I'm all about it. All right.
Should we talk chips? Not the ones that obviously you eat. There seems to be a lot of talk on chips in there. I saw no negative. I saw limitless. So it seems to be on everybody's mind. My personal view is no negative doesn't feel like it's one that we need this weekend at the moment, if I'm honest. I know Adam's going to bring the weather up. There you go, as if by magic. What's the latest? We've moved in and out, haven't we, with the rain? It's doing a hokey cokey bit.
Yes. So as we look at the forecast for tomorrow, I think people are looking really deeply into the percentages. It is going to rain from morning to evening in Montreal tomorrow. But what I think people are missing out on is how much it's supposed to rain. I think the latest forecasts have really light, persistent rain throughout the day. And I think that will be less disruptive than what they were promising in Miami, which is torrential downpours, potentially race disrupting lightning. So for me, I think I'm okay waiting on no negative. And part of why I'm holding out for a wet sprint weekend is I want that rain to get backwards into Saturday. So you have risk on Saturday and risk on Sunday, but then it's going to be a dry day. And we have it's now half the grid starting from the pit lane. So I think it's going to be a safer sprint in terms of avoiding DNFs. So I'm going to personally wait on no negative, but I think it's a differential play for some of you that think there could be some turn one disaster because this is a pretty treacherous turn one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in terms of the poll, I think no negative was 23%, limitless was 15%, 31% with another one, and then 31% was saying none. So limitless, you could play it. I think you've got the 2x2x2 sort of thing to go with, haven't you? So I think you look at it, if you are going to play it, you look at 2 Mercedes, 2 McLarens, and then take your pick of the Ferraris, isn't it? If you are going to play it, it's probably a track where you're most likely to get some good traction on that if you still got it to use. I know a lot of people used it early on in the season, didn't they, to be honest?
That's right. And this is around the end of the time that you'd use Limitless. I'm seeing a lot of teams also starting to bring in a B-tier constructor or these cost cap building B-tier drivers to build your cost cap through Canada so that you can use it in Monaco, which is traditionally one of the best races to use it because there are absolutely no overtakes. So it really locks in that the top 5 drivers are going to probably be the top 5 highest fantasy scorers. And for those of you, whatever it was there, 31% that picked another chip, that another one is probably wild card. We've got a lot of teams trying to make a lot of things happen on their teams. Some folks started Charles Leclerc in Miami. They're trying to pivot to a Mercedes driver. All of us are trying to get into the Mercedes constructor after how good they've looked to start the weekend. And then there's all of these top cost cap building drivers that let us down in Miami, then we now have to pivot into some alternatives for Canada. So if you're taking a minus 20 or more, I recommend the wild card this week. Right now, touch wood, I don't have that many transfers going in, so I'll probably either stick with a regular team or take a minus 10.
Yeah, I think, I did post my team earlier anyway, but from my point of view, I managed to make some moves without using a wild card. So I think I'm probably a bit biased in the sense I didn't have to. So it kind of felt like, I feel that with the drivers we got and the choices we got, you're going to be relying on a bit of luck, if I'm honest, this weekend. It doesn't feel like it feels like you're picking the best of a bad bunch, let's be honest about it. It doesn't feel like standout winners and losers. So it feels like you've got a pile, and some people are going to get really lucky. Some people are going to be unlucky, and whichever part of the coin toss you fall on is going to be the way forward. So for me, I managed to make some moves without using the wild card, so I've still got that in the back pocket if I need to pivot out anyway later on down the road. But definitely, if you've got someone like Charles Leclerc and Ferrari as a constructor, you need to make some moves, and you're talking minus 20. We've said this before, anything around minus 20, you've got to start really questioning whether or not it's worth taking a minus 20 or whether or not it's worth bringing that chip in to use it.
Terry, you make a great point about flexibility coming out of this week. And I had the option of Mercedes and McLaren as my two constructors, but that means I'm running most of the cheapest drivers on the grid. And like you said, this is a bad bunch that we're picking from. And if we have multiple DNFs, I don't have the cost cap room to then move them out without taking big penalties in Monaco. So I like having slightly more expensive midfield drivers so that if anything goes sideways within 2 moves, I can move them out for Monaco without taking a big penalty.
Yeah.
And that dives right into a Hill's question in the chat of Alex Albon or Ocon. This is a great question because I had been pumping up Esteban Ocon all week long. He's got this streak of 6 straight top 10 finishes in Canada. He's the 9th highest scoring driver in the game. He's P2 for overtakes. He's all around a really great asset. But what I really like about Alex Albon, if we come over to the budget builder here, what his 3 race average is going to look like this week and in Monaco. This week, he's the most likely driver to go up in cost, according to F1 Fantasy Tools, at 64% for a 0.6 price rise. But more importantly, in Monaco, minus 1 from Japan is going to fall off his 3 race average. So it's going to be 20 points from Miami, presumably a double-digit score this week in Canada. And then that means his targets for a maximum price rise again in Monaco are going to be quite high. So I like Albon not only for this week, but as a hold candidate. Esteban, on the other hand, he's trundling around. You can see the Haas duo have been in this no man's land in the midfield. So unless we can see them dial in some upgrades that get them back to their overtaking ways, I'm starting to lead toward Williams, which appear to be on the up and up.
Definitely. Oh, we've got a new member. Oh, new supporter. Welcome to Zach Taylor 3. Thank you.
Zach Taylor, welcome to the club.
Yeah, welcome to the club. Should we do some questions? There's loads of questions. Should we do some questions?
Let's do it.
I'm going to completely throw Adam now because he likes to follow routine. So I like to throw him off and just go off some random tangents about what we're going to do.
Fire away, Terry. Do you have a favorite question?
I don't. Read them out. Let's go.
All right. So, oh my goodness, there's so much.
That's what I mean. There's so many. There's so many. You know, all these people waiting for some answers, and we're rapping about the weather.
Lannister wants to know Albon and Ferrari versus Bottas and McLaren. I would say Albon Ferrari this week.
Yeah.
And that's for a few reasons. Let's go through the team calculator here. They're still predicting that the 2 Cadillacs have about a 30%, or no, it's the 2 Aston Martins have a 30% and the 2 Cadillacs have about a 10 to 15% chance of DNFing, especially now with Bottas starting the sprint from the pit lane. I don't see him doing much more than surviving this race. So you can see his projected score for the weekend is negative. As for Ferrari versus McLaren, I think McLaren could score slightly more points this week. Ferrari with a 2 pit stop race should get back to their ways of scoring double-digit points for fastest pit stops. I think that will keep it close. And then Ferrari is going to be the team that you want for Monaco. So Albon Ferrari, slightly better this week, and then much, much better to have for Monaco.
Yeah, definitely. What?
All right. Matthew in the chat says, got Kimi, Behrman, Colapinto, Lawson, Perez, McLaren, Ferrari, and 2 transfers. All right. So we got to get some of these cost cap losers out, like Behrman. Oh, maybe it's just Behrman. Lawson is an interesting case because he's starting at the back of the grid, should have good overtakes. You can see he's right underneath Max Verstappen for projected fantasy scoring this week at 18.4. So the Sims love him. But when you look at his cost cap gain targets, he needs 24 just for the minimum price gain, 32 for a maximum price gain. And that feels like we're asking a lot out of Liam. So I'm seeing a mixed bag on Lawson. You can either keep him in, try to bank those points, set yourself up for lower cost cap gain targets by the time we get to Monaco, or you dump them purely for cost cap reasons. So I'm seeing potentially could drop Behrman and McLaren, get McLaren up to Mercedes, and then Behrman, let's see, you need an extra 1.6 million to get from McLaren to Mercedes. That means you got to go down 1.6 million for Behrman, and that would put you squarely in the Perez range. So maybe Perez for Behrman and Mercedes for McLaren. I'll set you up for good cost cap gains and the points for Mercedes.
Yeah, definitely. Is it worth refreshing that? I saw Michael in the chat just said there was updated sims.
I saw an update come in just a second ago. Too.
Literally, I saw Michael just drop in the chat just while we're on the sim pages.
Yeah, it's based on the four pit lane starts. I think they are confirmed. I saw this on official F1 docs.
Yeah, I've seen it somewhere. They're definitely happening. I'm not sure if we've seen paperwork yet for it, but they're definitely happening, to be honest.
Couple things jump out to me here. The first one is big dive from Liam Lawson. You saw 2 seconds ago that this was 18. Now he's down to 10, which is interesting. Couple extra points for Alex Albon. I thought the pit lane start would actually be worse for him, but his score has gone up.
They're banking on overtakes, aren't they? Like we said, coming from the back and get him through.
Overall, nothing too crazy. And then you can see, look how close the expected points are between McLaren and Ferrari now. Just 0.1 between them. So for those of you asking McLaren versus Ferrari, if you already have Ferrari, I'm fine keeping them because you're going to want them for Monaco too.
Yeah, and they're cheaper. Win-win.
All right, let's jump over and knock out one of our member lineups here. So here we are with Rick. We are no longer checking. So he's got minus 10 lineups, which I'm looking at very, very similar teams, Rick. We're basically now between Albon and Ocon with these teams. I like the movement here to Mercedes Ferrari. I'm going to go with Albon on this one.
Yeah, I would go with Albon and definitely that Ferrari Mercedes move. Without giving, that's a team I've got with my two constructors. So yeah.
Terry, I don't know if this is our American showing, but I thought a marmot was a groundhog. Is there a difference between a marmot and a groundhog? What did Alex Albon hit?
I don't entirely. I mean, for me, they're a groundhog, but aren't they called something else as well? Didn't I see that in Canada? Don't they refer to them? I don't know if we've got any Canadians in the chat, but don't the Canadians refer to them as something different as well? So I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, it's enough to break your front wing, put you in a wall, and put you out of sprint qualifying, whatever it was. To be honest,
totally ruined that.
Yeah, whatever it was, it done some damage.
Greg, can we start a poll on what would you call the vermin that Alex Albon hit?
What would you call a groundhog?
Let's see. Do we have any more member lineups? No, right now. All right, let's get back into the chat because we've got a lot of questions.
There is loads in there this week.
Terry, how are we doing on likes? Is it almost time to show one of our lineups? We get a lot of questions on showing my lineup.
I'll tell you what, we'll do a deal. If you all like it, we'll read some questions and then we'll meet in the middle and do some lineups at the same time. There we go. There you go. Canadian says they're just groundhogs. Thank you. I'm with groundhogs, by the way. That's what I know them as.
You don't see too many Brits and Americans agreeing on what to call something, but here we are agreeing on groundhog.
Here we are breaking down international relationships.
Matt wants to know. Yeah, we're reading the same one. Is it worth taking a punt on Lawson? I am. So a little prelude into showing my lineup. I'm gonna take the hit on Lawson. My cost cap is 110.8 million, and I think it's just enough where I can afford to chase those extra points for the sake of probably taking at least a 0.2 million hit this week. But I think that's going to make him a good hold if he delivers on that 15 or so point expected points target that we're seeing here from F1 Fantasy Tools. Yeah, now it's down to 10. I think he's still going to be a good hold come Monaco.
I just want to answer that one about, are we prioritising Ferrari over McLaren because of potential engine changes? Mine is purely cost, if I'm honest. I don't think the points difference is enough to warrant the cost at the moment. By going, if you went Mercedes, McLaren, you start limiting what you can do with your team. So for me personally, I just found it a bit too expensive for what you're going to get in points. Yes, there was a bit of a difference in Miami, but from what we're seeing here and from what the Sims are saying, I don't think it's going to be as big as that. So for me, it's not to do with any of the engine change, anything like that. It's purely a cost point of view that I just feel by having McLaren and Ferrari, I've got more flexibility to do so for the drivers, not go down as low as some of the B tier drivers. So it's not really to do with that, if I'm honest. I would probably, if I had the budget, I would definitely go McLaren and obviously Mercedes. I just think for me personally, just stifles me too much for what I can do with my team.
And for me, it's the transfers. We're at the point now where I need the wild card to do it to afford McLaren. Now I'm bringing in multiple guys out of Bortoleto, Bottas, maybe Lance Stroll. Oh my goodness. No, I can't stomach any of that. So we're just going to go with Mercedes, Ferrari, probably, unless some news drops in the next 40 minutes or so that changes my mind.
I've also got at the back of my mind, obviously, the engine changes. Now, I'm not envisaging that Mercedes is going to have any problems once the hot test comes in, obviously, from Monaco. So in my mind, I've said this all season, I believe they're fully compliant and it's all fine. However, there is just a bit of me that says, actually, is that going to be an issue from that? Until I see it in action and we know that the new regs are kicked in and we know the engines are fine, I've always got a niggle over things. So for me personally, I've just got wildcard left in there in case I need to come out of that because something shows up on that Mercedes engine, which, to be honest, so far has looked pretty damn good across everything, hasn't it? So for me, I don't think it's a problem. My personal view is they already hit the benchmark and it's all fine. However, like anything else, until we see it in action, there's always that little bit of a nagging doubt at the back of my mind on it.
Interesting question in the chat. What 3 races do you believe are the best to use the 3X boost? For me, it's always sprint weekends. So Silverstone, Zandvoort, Singapore, the rest of the way. I think you'd be hard pressed to get in Antonelli and Russell this week to take advantage of how fast Mercedes are. You'd have to completely rearrange your team to do that. You need a wild card just to use the 3X boost, and we can't do that. So I would say hold it for those second half sprint weekends.
I would say Silverstone is a really good bet. We know that updates arrive at Silverstone. We know that with the proximity to the factories, we know that they like the track. They know the track well. They obviously do test days there. It's a track they know inside out. It's a track that normally gets a raft of updates for a lot of the teams, to be honest. So with the fact it's now got the added bonus being a sprint weekend this year, of course, that might actually make it a really good 3X play, to be honest. So I think for me, it's worth probably hanging on at the moment for that. But obviously, if you want to get some early points on the board, a lot of people have done that just so they've used the chips, got the points, so they're now building budget and other parts of it, aren't they? Would you take a -10 swap out Lawson? I'm not sure I'd take a -10. I might go with it. The V-carb done a lot bad. Lindblad's looked really good in the V-carb. Can I just say, I don't think the car's actually too much of a problem. Obviously, Liam had that problem in free practice, which obviously then we didn't see what he could do in the sprint qualifying because he didn't take part. So actually, it's a bit of a, if you go off Lindblad's performance, the V-carb doesn't actually look a bad car and a bad setup, to be honest.
No, I'm good with keeping Lawson in that case, unless we find out in the next 35 minutes that he's parked on the side of the road and isn't going to take place in the sprint. Or I only take a -10 on a B tier driver if there's a 100% chance that the driver you're subbing out is going to lose 0.6 million and a 100% chance the driver you're bringing in is going to gain 0.6 million. And we had something close to this with Lawson in Miami where he needed multiple DNFs to not gain value. That's the sort of scenario where I'd bring someone in tier B. But I found last year, every time I tried to take a -10 to chase cost cap, it always burned me. That driver either under-delivered, I take the cost cap hit and the -10 hit. I find that it's just not worth it. There was a question about have we shared our lineups yet? Make sure you hit that like button because I'm close to sharing mine in the next few minutes. So if you can hear me out there, make sure you hit that like button if you want to see the team on.
Someone's put due to go into Mercedes would mean I may have to go to Alonso or Bortoleto. Bortoleto is probably not the worst you can go with, to be honest. I know, obviously, like Adam said, it's flip of a coin, is it, with their reliability? Let's be honest about it.
If he survives the race, he's fine.
Yeah,
he's totally fine. But we saw from Hulkenberg, what's the downside? A minus 30 plus points and not making it to the end of both races. Oh, is the F1 app glitching? I don't know, Race Maven.
I don't know. This is why I lock my lineup in well in advance. Normally because I don't want to sit here and have a mad scramble. I mean, we had one last time out with obviously Hulkenberg, didn't we? But I do like to come live without actually having to lock my lineup in because otherwise I'll forget. And people who followed the show for a while will know that I'm notorious for locking in a lineup either by mistake or something else. So I've done quite well this year, touch wood.
Good stuff. All right. Pick one of Perez, Alonso, Albon. Oh, Albon all day.
Albon. Oh, easily. Yeah.
I like
All
him
day
better
long.
this week for points. I like him better next week for points. I like him better both weeks for cost cap gains. Now, my lineup has allegedly posted as I scheduled it. So I'm going to move over to that now.
I feel we should have a drum roll or something. We should get
Here
some sound
we
effects
are.
on the drum roll.
Let me talk you through this. So keeping Antonelli and Ferrari from Miami, bringing in Mercedes like we've talked about all week. I really want coverage of the top two drivers. And if Kimi, for any reason, goes backwards at the start, remember, he's lost 20 positions from the start this season. He's got a new clutch paddle this weekend, and he thinks it solved the issue. But if it hasn't, I want George Russell there to cover him for both races. Moving into the midfield, Colapinto's just been a set and forget for me week in and week out. I'm sure there's going to be some DNF regression with him eventually, but for now, keeping him in because that Alpine looks good. And then I originally took this team the back row bandits because I thought they were both starting on the grid, but then Albon and Lawson, I'm just hoping that they get those overtakes because the upside there is quite big. And so with all of this flexibility on my team, I am saddled with one low-cost driver, and that's Gabby. I was in between Bortoletto and probably Bottas as the other driver at the bottom here. I don't think there's a wrong answer between the two of them. One's slow, one's unreliable. So it really is a coin flip. But what makes me like this lineup so much is that anything can happen to two of these drivers, and there's so much cost cap flexibility between Albon, Colapinto, and Lawson that I can pivot come Monaco.
I got a confession without us comparing notes, so I posted the same lineup.
Stop it.
Have a look. And this is genuine. We haven't actually compared notes because I've been sick all week, so we haven't discussed this at all.
Look at that. Oh, hold on. Is that wait, Terry? You've got Perez.
Oh, well, there you go. I went Perez. Wasn't too bad then.
That's perfect. So you'll be keeping your fingers and toes crossed that Albon finds another critter this afternoon, and you'll be rolling with Perez again. But this was a really brilliant move by you for Miami. We had that last minute decision of Hulkenberg. I went with Lindblad. You went with Perez, and Perez was the right call.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I think that allowed me to move without taking any penalties again, and it fits with Monaco, and it kind of still gives me the options to move. Hopefully, be a cost cut game means I might be able to go from Kimi to George if I need to at some point as well. That'd be really good. I can't afford him at the moment, so it's kind of like I'm stuck with Kimi, even though I think this weekend George feels like he's got the better of the two. I said beginning of the week that we needed a big weekend from George, or it felt like George needed one, and he's responded well at the moment. But if you look at that last run in sprint qualifying, Kimi wasn't far off. Yeah, he was really close. So anything can happen really, especially off the line and the way the Mercedes is getting bogged down at the moment. So I wouldn't rule out Kimi potentially in the race at least getting good performance. But George has looked on it. He doesn't look as far away as what he did in Miami, did he? He looked well off the pace there, to be honest. So yeah.
We're talking about the important stuff here. What poor animal gave its life for the new regs? 86% of you said groundhog. Thanks, everybody.
Talk about animals. Zach sent a goat trophy. I have no idea what one of those are, and we don't know what these fancy buttons do, but I appreciate it.
Zach, can you explain to two old guys what a goat trophy is? I know what goat stands for, but
two old guys. You probably shouldn't be on YouTube. Let's be honest about it.
Got a question from Lannister. Lawson or Colapinto out for Albon with the -10? I'm going to stay firm on this one. Because Albon's not a sure thing to go up 0.6 million, I wouldn't take the -10. Because you know what's going to happen. As soon as you pull one of them out, Lawson's going to have the race of his life. Albon's going to not make it out of the sprint race because maybe the parts they put together didn't quite work and they want to pull him early from the sprint. And now all of a sudden you've lost -10 and 0.2 million and the points. It's just, it would stack up on you. So I just stick with what you got.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Lawson, Perez, and Ocon. Which two would you go for?
Lawson, Perez, and Ocon.
I would go Lawson.
I'd say it depends. If you are under 109 million or so, that means you're going to want a little bit more cost cap. That's Perez and Ocon. If you're above 110 million or so and you're okay on cost cap, let's go points and call it Lawson and flip a coin between Perez and Ocon. What are we looking at between those two? Yeah. Three versus 1.8. Remember, when we talked to Ryder earlier this season, he said when you're down to 2 or 3 points at the back of the grid, that's thousands of simulations giving you just tiny margins of error. So it's not a high confidence estimate that these two are different. The Lawson to Bortoleto or Ocon to Albon. Ocon to Albon, which was basically what I was in between all week. I had Esteban Ocon on my lineup right up until yesterday, and Albon just yanked it away from me at the last minute.
Oh, I like this question, Adam. Who do you think as the fifth limitless driver, Lewis, Max, or Charles? I'd go for Lewis from what I've seen, if I'm honest.
I'm seeing a lot of people behind Lewis.
He's feeling it. You know, he's obviously given up on the sim, resorted to the PlayStation 5, no doubt, instead. You know, he's obviously downloaded the new F1 game and he's decided to use that instead. But yeah, I mean, Max will always be in amongst it, as we know, but I'm not sure that Red Bull's got the car underneath it. And we go to this all the time about, you know, drivers leading championship winning cars, all the rest of it. Max would always get you points. He would always give you overtakes. But when he's in the middle, anything can happen. And if I'm honest at the moment, I don't feel that with the track and what we're seeing from both Isaac and from Max, the Red Bull have got the car to let Max get into the mix. That back straight is gonna hurt him. Lewis kind of feels like he's full of confidence. He feels like he's up for it. Charles, I think Miami has potentially dented a bit of his confidence because what happened at the end of it. We spoke yesterday. Charles was saying he was suffering from the brakes a lot. He was suffering from finding the setup right. He was having problems with the setup. That doesn't fill you with the confidence that Lewis is giving you in the sense of, I'm feeling that I'm on it, best qualifying I've had, that Lewis on about. So out of those, I would put my money towards Lewis at the moment, just based on what we're seeing. That's what I'm saying.
Too.
Yeah, just a very long-winded answer for that.
Well, I've got a stat for you, too, to support Lewis. When I look at the details of the last sims, there are only 3 drivers with a greater than 10% chance of driver of the day. You probably could have guessed Kimi. George, number 2. Lewis, number 3. So I think his history at the track, like Mexa said in our chat a moment ago, plus all of these factors that Terry said, his confidence here, Ferrari are looking fairly good. Lewis, the better of the 2 Ferraris so far this weekend. I think he would be a great 5th limitless driver.
A lot of people look at Limitless in Monaco. I've seen this question quite a few times about setting teams up for Limitless in Monaco. So I think I just saw one there, which was, is Mercedes McLaren with Antonelli, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Bottas, Colapinto good enough teams so they can activate Limitless in Monaco? Because obviously, as we know, Monaco, you go off the previous, don't you? And that side of things. So I think that's where a lot of people are wondering now what to do with their teams.
I'd want to know what you started the week with, because in a perfect world, you could get Hulkenberg out. I mean, when I look at his cost cap gain target, he needs 35 or more points to go up or 31 or more points to not go down. That's going to be pretty impossible for him. So if there's a way for you to get into anybody else at that price range, if it's Bortoleto, you might be running out of people at that point. Or if you moved into either Mercedes or McLaren this week and get into a cheaper constructor like a Ferrari, use an extra $1 million or $2 million to bump Hulkenberg up, I would do that so you have hopefully at least 5 or 6 cost cap gains heading into your limitless in Monaco.
Oh, this is interesting. Bortoleto, Bottas, and McLaren or Albon, Ferrari. I would go Albon, Ferrari.
Not only would I did.
There you go. There you go.
Can you tank hard for budget if you go for limitless next race, or is that too many points wasted? That's a great question, Alex, because I've seen some teams say, what if I just slap in VCarb this week? We'll get 0.6 million this week, probably roll into a 0.6 million in Monaco. But when I look at the points delta, we're looking at 48-ish points between McLaren, Ferrari, and the likes of VCarb and Williams. That's a lot to give up considering these tier A constructors are still going to pull 0.3 million. So you're really talking about 0.3 million versus 40 points. It feels a little too much for me. You've got to be really in the doldrums of cost cap to try to set yourself up that way, because it's going to hurt on the point side. What do you think about Antonelli, Ocon, Lawson instead of Behrman, Colapinto, Bortoleto, Ferrari, Mercedes? That's very close to what I had. It's literally my team, except I have Albon over Ocon. But if you had Ocon on your team, you want to save a transfer, I'm happy with that too.
Mia Wong, I think, like Adam was just saying, I think your VCarb problem is going to be the amount of points you lose. I think you'd be great for cost cap, great for budget building. but you're going to take a hit on the points side by running a V-carb as a second constructor. That's probably the bigger issue on it.
Mercedes and V-carb as constructors. This is the thing I'm worried about. Is V-carb is projected to get the most points out of any Tier B constructor because of those Lawson overtakes, but it's going to come at a cost, because then you'll have, it really is 43 points or so to Ferrari for 0.3 million. And I think that's a little too much. If you started the week with them and you're trying to preserve transfers, or you're heading into Limitless, and no, I don't even like it for Limitless. I would say go 2 Tier A constructors as best you can, even ahead of a Limitless week.
Yeah, definitely. Worth taking the -10 to get an album for one of the Perez, Colapinto, or Lawson. -10 is always one of those, isn't it? Where if it pays off, it's a goated inspired move, isn't it? Yeah, if you pick the driver that happens to have a good weekend and they outscore, then it's a great move, isn't it? But then on the flip side, if nothing really happens, they stay in the middle of the pack, don't make many overtakes, you've then just lost -10, haven't you, from that point of view? That's the problem.
If it's a single move, I usually don't take a -10 on a Tier B. I have a -10 on my team because I'm basically getting into the Mercedes constructor and then moving out 3 cost cap losers for 3 likely cost cap gainers. So it was a big effect that made me take the -10. Our newest member, Zach, wants to know, should I switch out Haas for V-carb for a -10? I think it's about the same sort of logic as the Tier B driver. They're both pretty likely to go at 0.6 billion this week. I don't see a whole lot difference between V-carb and Haas from a points estimate. 14 points versus a -10. All you need is one bad start from Arvid Lindblad to tumble down, and then all of a sudden these 2 constructors are even again. So I'd say keep your 10 points and keep your Haas.
Just going back to, I saw the wildcard one for this weekend. Like I said, from my point of view, I just don't need to use it yet. I can move into what I moved into with that Mercedes Ferrari lineup without doing it. So definitely, if you're anywhere, like I said earlier, -20, anything around that sort of territory, worth considering if you're setting yourself up for Monaco. If to get rid of someone like Charles Leclerc from Miami, like Adam said earlier on the show, you need to make a few transfers to make that happen. If you're doing it to bring in 2 good constructors and then someone like Kimi, definitely start looking at wildcard, because ultimately you need to be able to get that blank canvas to go back to it. But if you're talking about a -10, that sort of territory, I'd be half tempted to keep hold of it still and just use it for in case you've got to move somewhere else later on. So I think it's purely what you've got and where you're going to. Anything, like I said, -20 over, yes, look at it. Anything less than that, it's probably better off not to be honest.
Got a new sub, Sahil. Thank you so much for subscribing. Currently on Antonelli, Ocon, Lawson, Hulk, Bortoletto with McLaren, Ferrari. Okay, pretty common team from Miami. Switch Lawson, sub for Perez. Okay, probably looking to hold on to cost cap there. I think the points will be there with Lawson. Sub out McLaren for Merc. Oh, yeah, if going down from Lawson allows you to afford Mercedes, absolutely. I'm good with all of that. But then you're still on Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
So I would figure out a way to get. Could you get from McLaren to Mercedes if you bring Hulkenberg to Bottas? Keep Lawson, you'll get his points, but also maybe a little cost cap loss. But you should get the overtakes.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a Hulkenbergian team, you really need to try and find a way out of it, to be honest, don't you? With what's going on.
We got an important one, Terry. Worst team suggestion. Now,
should we put Hulkenberg in there?
maybe. The Sims still have both Aston Martins at about a 30% chance of DNFing. So even though there's some upside to Alonso, they still have. This is 2 sprint weekends in a row of no upgrades for Aston Martin. So at best, they'll be at the back. At worst, they'll both be in the garage. So I'd start with them. Bottas, the worst of the 2 Cadillacs.
Yeah.
And then we've been talking about it's a coin flip between Audis on who's going to DNF. I'd pick one of them and hope they're the one that pulls a Hulkenberg.
It does it, yeah. Got Hulk in the air already. Ouch. Keep
Race Maven with the super chat. Thank you so much, Race Maven. I appreciate it. I think you said you might run into Greg at the 500 this weekend. So I hope you get a chance to say hi to him.
Should we do some questions? I feel we should do some questions. We got what?
Yeah, oh yeah. These last 20 minutes are all you. I'll put back up my team. I saw a couple questions in the chat about what the teams look like. Terry is this lineup with Sergio Perez right here.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that up for a moment while I take a look at that. Oh, I answered a question earlier about VCarb. She doesn't have enough transfers to change VCarb. Is it worth to change to another tier B constructor? Then you don't have enough budget for a tier A constructor. I would say if you're budget limited and you're stuck with VCarb, they're probably the best of the tier Bs. So maybe stick with them for now then. And then try to use this weekend to build that budget so you can sneak into McLaren, Ferrari, or ideally Mercedes, Ferrari in the upcoming races.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think Adam has got the latest version with the Lawson drop. I think we just decided to stay with him anyway, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah, I think I'm currently having a debate. For those of you that remember Pot Pan Man, him and I have been team twins through the first, literally every race. We've had the exact same lineup. He's considering this, but Bottas over Bortoleto here. And we're currently in a debate on whether a pit lane start is good for Valtteri because he's going to avoid any carnage on turn one, or is it a bad thing that he is absolutely not going to get any overtakes and he'll likely get passed by anybody in the pit lane that's starting behind him. So I think that's the only spot on my team I'm unsure about.
Oh, this is an interesting one, Adam. What do we think the delta is going to be between McLaren and Ferrari this week?
The delta between McLaren and Ferrari, I think it's going to be small margins because on track, McLaren will be ahead of Ferrari. Ferrari is going to get those overtakes on the race start in all likelihood. That'll get them a little bit closer. And then Mercedes had a pretty fluke fastest pit stop in Miami, but this is a 2-stop race. And so I suspect Ferrari is going to rip that back, get at least 5 to 10 points in that category that the other two big constructors may only get 2 or 5 on. So I think that's going to keep Ferrari close, even though the results on track might not be the same.
Oh, did I just see that Ewan's just sneaked in the chat?
He's come in with a bomb. He's hit the limitless chip. Oh my goodness. He's got a team that's crushing it in the Global League too. So I mean,
dropping in the chat with a chip like that. Blimey. Welcome, Ewan. How are you?
Ewan, if you're out there, we've had a lot of questions about 5th limitless driver. We picked Lewis, but if you can still hear us, I'd love to hear who you picked.
Version 3 stim is out. Oh my word, it's like pit lane starts all over again.
Yes. So this is what we had been looking at, the V3. V2, I think he just did some math corrections the first time because they were very, very similar, but V3 is specifically accounting for 4 pit lane starts. And so I think this is referring to the question earlier about the delta between McLaren and Ferrari. It's razor thin, less than
Bottas and Albon or Perez and Colapinto. I would personally say probably Perez and Colapinto because that's what's in my team.
It's very close.
Yeah,
it's very close. If you think Bottas will survive the race, Albon and Bottas, but I think the odds of Perez and Colapinto surviving the race are a little bit better.
What was that one? Currently, Antonelli, Ocon, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Bortoleto with McLaren and Ferrari. Switch Lawson for Perez, cost couple of advantage, and swap out McLaren for Merck, Hulkenberg for Bottas.
So, Antonelli, Ocon, Perez, Bottas, Bortoleto with Merck and Ferrari. Yeah, all that's good.
Yeah,
you've avoided the cost cap fiascos. You might be taking a -10 because you made 3 moves, but I'm taking a -10. So welcome to the club.
Yes, we considered Albon for cost cap and overtakes. What we're thinking is from the pit lane, the potential that he's going to go at least past Aston Martins to Cadillacs and start getting in amongst it. That's what we're assuming from there. And then obviously the cost cap games are on it. So whilst, Williams, like we said earlier, have looked a lot stronger in the past couple of weeks. Carlos has looked the more comfortable driver. But then again, same with Liam, really. Alex didn't get the chance to do qualifying. So we're kind of going off the dark over where they could have come. And if you look at both their teammates, they qualified quite high. So I think for me, there's definitely a good car for both drivers underneath them. The $1 million question is whether or not that can transpire onto the actual track or not.
And then for Albon too, he's going to drop that Japan -1. He'll have 20 points from Miami. If he gets a double-digit score here, he's going to be at the top of the list of drivers most likely to go up in Monaco, which is going to be a low-scoring race. So we want a low target. So I like Albon as probably the best hold in Tier B as well.
I personally want to see lots of action in Monaco. Can we just say that out loud?
As someone who may or may not be.
As somebody who will be there, I would like to see lots of action in Monaco. Maybe even some rain, but don't tell my dad that.
Speaking of rain, Ewan has come back to say Max is his 5th driver on the Limitless team because of a wet race masterclass coming in. That's fair.
I mean,
the great equalizer for Max.
I mean, you probably want to cross more on your fingers. I'll be doing a rain dance outside Ewan for that one. But yeah, weather forecast was a bit of rain. It wasn't disastrous. Adam had it earlier. There you go.
It's gonna rain the whole time, but what we're arguing about is how much it's gonna rain. It sounds like a light, persistent rain that if you can, you might even have something that'll really mess you up, like a rolling start. You could be on inters the whole time, and it could be a parade. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be too disruptive, but we're wrong all the time when it comes to this weather stuff. We thought for sure it was going to rain in Miami, and they were able to make it work.
Kimi or George for 2 times. I would actually go for George if you got the option in the budget this weekend. He looks a better driver, and he's got a really good record around Canada. So whilst I expect them to be close, like I said earlier, George actually looks more on top of it this weekend. So if you got the option, I would go George. I just personally haven't got the budget for it. That's why I've got Kimi. No other reason, to be honest, currently.
Oh my goodness. Question in the chat. Have Bottas, Bortoleto, Lindblad might play no negative. With those 3, it's not a crazy thought. I don't think no negative is a bad play. I think it's one of those things where it's, for me, a 60-40 decision that I'm not going to play it.
It's one of those potential to be a hero chips, isn't it? I mean, I played it last year. Stroke of luck. It was absolutely a brilliant chip to play. And absolutely, I think you paid it to a race where it didn't really have an impact on the weather. So I think it's one of those that if it comes off, it's an absolutely inspired move. But then if you get a race with no drama, no incidents, you kind of look back on it and go, that was a waste. And I can guarantee at some point in the season, you will go, oh, I should have kept it for that point. But there's just no way of knowing, ultimately. There's absolutely no way of knowing. And with so many variables with new regs, new engines, new cars, the way they react to weather, all these things, it is just pure luck sometimes on some of these, to be honest. So I think if you've got a doubt, play it. But I wouldn't say there's anything that's making me think this is a specific race. I've got to play it is probably the best way to describe it. There's nothing where I'm looking at the weather, looking at what's gone on and going, I feel a need to play it. I'm kind of like, you're either going to get lucky or unlucky. And I think there's going to be races later on in the year where it's going to be more useful personally.
The rest of us are just going to be holding our breath all weekend, hoping everybody survives. Final team, Kimi, Colapinto, Perez, Ocon, Albon, Mercedes, VCAR. Yeah, I think that'll work. If you don't have the money to get up, and it looks like you have the best cost cap gainers you can have on that team, that all looks good. And this has been driving me. I've been nervous to say your name. Is it Mia or Maya? I'm going to go with Mia for now, but correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. It's a good team.
3 times boost is a good chip. It's probably only a good chip if you can get that second driver in, isn't it? And that's the thing. If you've got the advantage of being able to have 2 good drivers in there, then yes. If you're looking at putting that 3x on Kimi and then a 2x on somebody else who's a B tier driver, it's probably not going to work out the best on that point of view. That's probably where I'm at with it. You need to be able to have two good. I think for me, Lawson from the pit lane probably feels like the better out of 2. Lindblad's performed well, but I don't think he's either going to hold that pace. I don't see him getting more. So for me, Lindblad's going to be one of those drivers where he's either going to hold position, not score many overtakes, or he's going to drop back and lose points. So that's another reason why I probably haven't even considered Lindblad. Performing brilliantly, by the way. And this is where I think we get confused sometimes with how a driver is performing and how we need him for fantasy points. I think shout out to Harvard this season, absolutely phenomenal debut season so far. Reminds me very much of Isaac last season and how he came into it, but he's having an absolutely stonking season. So not selecting him is nothing to do with his driving. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Ocon to Albon or Hulk to Bortoleto. Oh no, you've only got to make one. You only have one move to make. I'd say avoid the sure cost cap loss for a possible cost cap loss. So I'd say Hulkenberg to Bortoleto, but that's
with a prayer.
You're just flipping the coin from one side to the other and hoping you've picked the right side.
Yeah, Hulkenberg to Bortoleto and pray to the Audi gods that Alan McNish has sorted out the reliability problems.
All right. Is 3x boost a good chip for this weekend? Only if you have enough money to make it work. I'd say otherwise, hold for when you have more budget.
Silverstone.
Exactly.
I would take Perez over Alonso. I still don't trust the Aston Martin. Like Adam said, Perez is slow, but finishing currently is probably the best way to describe it.
Exactly.
No offense, Cadillac, and apologies, but yeah, they're finishing if nothing else.
Ooh, big question in the chat here. Kimi and Perez versus Russell and Valtteri.
Russell and Valtteri.
I think most teams would have to do too much messing around with their lineups. I would say stick with whoever you have on your team now. So if you had Kimi, I'd hold the transfer. If you have Russell, I'd keep Russell. And if you started Leclerc last week and you need to pivot to one of them, I'd say go with the differential, like Terry said, Russell and Valtteri.
-10 and wildcard, take -10. Don't wildcard for -10. Feels like a waste.
It's exactly what we did.
Yeah. Keep it for a rainy day. Literally rainy day. And any upgrades on any more cars?
Good questions, chat. It's been a while since someone was announced to have been started from the pit lane. This is around the time we figure out.
Let me have a quick look while we do some questions.
Terry, get on the phone. Call some of those contacts.
Call some people, yeah.
Is anybody struggling as they fire up their car? What points does Albon need to go up in value? Albon needs 7 to go up 0.2 million, 16 to go up 0.6 million, which I think 7 points is very, very doable for someone in Alex's position for the sprint. He could get it in the sprint alone. Bortoletto and McLaren, or Albon and Ferrari? Albon and Ferrari.
I'm not seeing any new updates.
Lannister says Stroll may not start.
Well, to be honest, that's just Aston Martin.
I don't know I don't know if that's just a guess, or I mean, it's a very plausible guess if it was. Now, let's talk it through. If Stroll was to not start, that means everyone behind Lance has one less overtake. So that's pretty much it. Let's see, where was Stroll? 18. So that means the guy starting from the pit lane. That means one less probably for Liam Lawson, one less for Albon. Yeah, I think that's one fewer overtake for Lawson and Albon. Then it puts Lawson in a bit of no man's land. He's up behind Perez. He's going to jump Perez and Alonso and then chase the Haas's in a short sprint race. So Lawson's job would get a little bit harder this afternoon.
Pit lane order. Oh my words. They normally go in the order they qualified in, don't they, to be honest? So normally wherever they qualified, they basically go all the way back.
And I think crucially, because Valtteri qualified, that means Albon will be behind Valtteri. So let's see, who else? So it'd probably be like Behrman, Gasly, Bottas, Albon. That all sounds about right.
So Lance Stroll's car's currently up on jacks with mechanics working on it. So there's definitely a problem with Lance Stroll. If you have got Lance Stroll,
up on jacks with 7 minutes left.
Literally, there are mechanics working on his car. There's no wheels on it. Bear in mind, 5 minutes cut off for wheels. It's going to be close for Lance.
All right, chat and Terry, I need you to keep looking out for this because Lance Stroll starting either from the pit lane or not at all is probably one fewer overtake for Alex Albon.
I was going to say it looks like not at all at the moment. If I'm honest, from what we're seeing, I think they're going to. Right, so let's have a look then. Just to confirm, Liam Lawson isn't starting from the pit lane. Liam Lawson is starting on the grid in P18, so last on the grid. Okay, so what we've got.
Would he have to leave a space?
Yes, I believe so. So they would leave P17, which is Lance, currently empty, wouldn't it? But to be honest, he's on the right hand side anyway, so it's kind of irrelevant from that point of view. So pit lane starts confirmed. Ollie Behrman, Pierre Gasly, Valtteri Bottas, Alex Albon, and then Liam Lawson is starting last, but is on the grid, not the pit lane. Basically, is the way it's done so far. And Lance Stroll is looking doubtful. His car's up on jacks whilst it's currently on the grid. With 5 minutes to go, you got to put the wheels on, and always you got to start from the pit lane anyway. So yeah. Whew.
Good point from the chat. Stroll doesn't race. The grid has been published. I think that's a position gain for Gasly, Bottas, Albon.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's actually on the grid. So in theory, he's starting a race. So his car's actually on the grid. He'd be wheeled off with a gap left. So yeah, straight from the off, you would see that Liam would gain a position straight away. So would everyone in the pit lane.
All right, lightning round of answering some questions. We got 5 minutes left. Would you go Mercedes, Ferrari, Antonelli, Lawson, Alonso, Colapinto, Perez? Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of good cost cap gainers in there. Looks like you might have a lower cost cap, so that'll be a good way to get back up. How's it the Stroll doesn't start? Good question. They did have all day, but when you fire up the car to get ready for the sprint, sometimes things go sideways.
That's why we have that install app. That install app is really important. So when you see them drive out the pits, because reality is you would actually just wheel them out the pits to go on the grid. It's right next door. The reason they do a lap on, it's a reconnaissance lap. It's actually a full system check. That's why they do it. Bear in mind, they don't start the cars up a lot of the time because they're covered by the FIA. So it's actually a really important lap. It's really underrated. We never see it. We never hear about it, but it's one of the most important laps on there. It runs a complete systems check. And these cars are designed that anything that's slightly wrong, they start shutting down. So, the slightest thing that's wrong with it, there'll be a fail safe in it. It'll protect the engine, stop it from causing more damage. So, it's one of those where it doesn't get talked about, but it's probably one of the most important reconnaissance laps for the whole weekend when you're on your way to the grid, to be honest.
It looks like, Alexandra, overall, I don't see a lot of people going no negative. I think it's a differential that if you want to put it in, you'd be in the minority, but it has a really good chance of working too. Especially if you have a lot of these younger back of the grid drivers, inevitably one of them's going to suffer tomorrow.
How is Leclerc, Antonelli, Behrman, Lawson, Colapinto, Ferrari, Haas looking?
I'd make sure Antonelli's your 2x boost to start.
Or consider it 3x potentially with that.
Oh, or autopilot. If someone has a bad day in the rain.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if you've got Leclerc and Antonelli, it might be worth considering the 3x on that one.
Thanks, Race Maven. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you and my fellow Americans.
Well, about us, with our bank holiday in the UK, I mean, I'm in the shed absolutely sweltering at the moment, can I just say? Yeah, we're in some tropical weather now. We've gone from one extreme to the other.
Oh, my goodness.
Insulating this studio shed felt like a really good idea during the cold periods. During the summer, it's not feeling so good.
I'm not too far away from Montreal, so I've got very similar dreary, chilly weather here.
I would probably take that at the moment, which is quite ironic.
It's what you're used to in the UK, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we got Reno's going for no negative. I want to see that work for you. Absolutely. It worked in Miami. Should I use wildcard to get to Antonelli, Colapinto, Perez, Bottas, and Bortoletto, McLaren, Mercedes? Yeah. Yeah, do it.
Thank you, Zach, for joining in. Thank you for subscribing and for the GOAT trophy as well. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Any last questions? Any last news? I think it's safe.
Stroll is trying to start from the pit lane, so they are trying to get it started.
That would put him between Behrman and Gasly on the pit lane starts if they're doing it.
I think it's one of those. Most people realistically wouldn't have Stroll in your lineup, but the effects potentially overtake. So it's one of those where, not disrespecting Lance, but I don't think many people have selected him even as a B tier driver. I'd be very surprised if there's a lot of people who've got him in there from the point of view. So I think it's more of a case of if he starts, how does it affect overtakes and those side of things. But I mean, Fernando's shown that there is some pace in the Aston Martin. The question is, how long can that pace go for? And that's, 5-6 questions. Right, I think we're done. Red Bull and McLaren. Go McLaren, Toby. Very quickly, lock it in. You got a minute.
I'm going to go with McLaren as well. Thank you all so very much for watching. We'll be back to preview Monaco in 2 weeks. Good luck this weekend. Let us know how you make out. We'll be pulling for you. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you. Have fun.